Thanks, Travis. Go Cats.
No. He can't end on that.
This case should never have come to trial.
I don't think it's fair to call my clients frauds. Because one time I turned into a dog and they helped me. Thank you.
Your Honor, we would like to withdraw our plea of not guilty and enter a plea of guilty.
This trial is a travesty. It's a travesty of a mockery, of a sham, of a mockery, of a travesty, of two mockeries, of a sham.
If we are to have faith in justice, we need only to believe in ourselves.
And the truth shall set you free!
How do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Oh, guilty, but with a real good excuse.
I think the truth will come forth.
You can't handle the truth!
Hello, everybody. It's time for more Law Lite. As always, brought to you by Foreman Watson Holtree, FWHlegal.com. We are at 530 Frederica Street today in the high-rise white brick edifice. And, PJ, we have some construction going on right outside the door.
We do.
It sounds like a war zone.
Yes.
So to our listeners, we apologize if you hear some rat-tat-tat and knocking. It's just a part of progress.
Yeah. The door is not the only thing getting screwed.
Okay.
It's our podcast.
And you're the editor, so we're going to hope that gets edited out. We have a guest today. PJ, but he's not really a guest. We know him really well, and it's John Bennett.
Yes.
So, John, welcome to the Law Lite podcast.
Good morning.
So for those that don't know, I'm sure most people that listen to the podcast do know, John is an attorney in our firm, and we call him the Nomad. We call him the guy that burns up the roads in western Kentucky because John really doesn't have a home here in the firm. He has many homes. Isn't that right, John?
Yeah, I'm all over the place.
Yeah, so
he's like a gypsy.
He's a gypsy. He's the firm gypsy, and he doesn't look like a gypsy, but he does pick up his stuff and go wherever he's needed. And John, we're going to get into a bunch of stuff about your practice today because one of the things that tends to happen is that when I'm speaking on Law Lite, everything gets tilted to my litigation, personal injury, civil work, and but your career path has been different than mine and different than a lot, and so we want to talk to you about it. But before we get to that, I want the listeners to know a little bit about you. Where were you born and raised?
Decatur, Alabama. So my parents are originally both from Ohio County, high school sweethearts. My mom went to Western and played basketball. My dad went straight into the Navy, to the nuclear submarine program, and became a nuclear operator, and was an operator down in Athens, Alabama of a nuclear plant. And so I grew up down the road from there in a place called Decatur, Alabama.
Okay, so you were born in the deep South.
Yeah, a lot of people refer to my accent and notice that I'm not from around here.
Yeah, well, and that's a good thing. We have a little bit in common. I wasn't born and raised in Alabama, but I could throw a baseball about 10 times and be in Alabama. I was raised in L.A., Lower Alabama, in Pensacola, Florida, but I lived in a rural part of Pensacola, so we were really close to the Alabama line. A lot of the same characteristics of that deep southern Alabama.
Right. Well, and I tell people that Decatur is almost identical to Owensboro. It's a town about the same size, sits right on the Tennessee River, much like Owensboro on the Ohio. So they're very, very similar as far as demographics and how they're set up as towns as well.
So I know you well enough, PJ, to know that there is a burning question already going on in your head, and it has to do with nuclear. Something in there that caught your attention, didn't it?
Yeah, and a couple jokes as well.
I understand.
Yes, my dad glows in the dark.
I was going to say that explains a lot now that I know you've been you were raised around a nuclear plant.
Radiation, right. John, did you ever as a part of when you were kind of making a decision, hey, here's what I want to do, or exploring occupations, want to go the route your father did?
No, not really.
Why not?
that was a very quick answer. No,
it was just, I'm kind of knew from a young age, I guess, that I was going to do something different.
Right.
My dad worked, he worked 7 on, 7 off, 12-hour shifts. He was gone a lot from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Okay. And so, he made time for us when he could, but it's just his work schedule was very grinding.
I got you.
Just because of the way that the shift work was set up.
All right. So now, do you have brothers and sisters?
Yes, I've got one of each. I've got they're both younger. I'm the oldest. I've got a sister that's 2 years behind me, and my brother is 4 years younger than me to the day. We're born on the same day, 4 years apart.
There you go. Another interesting thing about John that we didn't know is
so
that
your parents had to like split presents in half. So your sister got like the full amount of presents, and then you and your brother only got like half.
Well,
each.
a funny story is that the day that my brother was born, my parents woke me up at like 5 a.m., let me open my birthday presents, and then they headed off to the hospital.
Happy birthday.
Yeah.
Happy birthday. Now, your brother and sister, where are they at right now?
My brother's in Vegas. He flies helicopters for the Air Force. He was an Air Force Academy grad, and he flies Pave Hawks for the Air Force. And then my sister is still down in North Alabama in Huntsville. She's an architect.
So you're the disappointment.
Yeah, exactly. I joke with people that I'm the runt. I'm the runt of the family intellectually.
Even though you're the oldest. Yeah.
And the lawyer. So what's that tell you?
Yeah. So the Air Force Academy. At any time while your brother was there, did you get to go visit him or
for his graduation?
How was that?
It was awesome. Yeah, he actually he told President Biden a joke. He was the keynote speaker at their graduation, and he said when he introduced himself, he said, "Now, President Biden," or I guess he wasn't president at the time. Vice president at the time. He said, "I really liked you on Parks and Rec." And said Biden looked at him and said, "I'm glad my daughters are married because you seem dangerous, son."
That's pretty good. That's pretty
funny.
good. I'm just wondering how long it took Biden to get through that speech there.
It took quite a while,
Yeah,
and then they do the flyover of the pilots to get him out. So it's quite a lengthy ceremony. You have to sit there the whole time. And
now that's in Colorado, right?
Colorado Springs.
Right,
yeah.
right. Wow. Okay. And so now, how did your parents? Do they still live in Alabama?
No, they've moved to Rough River
That's
just recently.
what I thought. Recently came up here back home.
Right.
And did your mom have a career in anything, or was she a stay-at-home mom and make sure that this cast of all-stars was being raised?
She stayed home, but she also drew house plans on the side. So
is that where your sister got the interest in?
Right, in architecture. So yeah, my mom had they didn't necessarily have a formal architecture program, but it was more of a graphic design type thing that kind of morphed into what she did at home. But she had a drawing board, and people would come over the house, and she had local contractors that she did a lot of work for.
Oh, yeah.
So
well, that's pretty cool. All right, so let's say, where did you do your undergraduate studies?
Western Kentucky.
Okay, now did you pick Western Kentucky because your mom had gone there? I mean, I'm sure when you graduated high school in Decatur, right?
Right.
So I would bet that there weren't a whole lot of people in your graduating class that were just going up to the Hilltoppers.
No, everybody was going to Auburn or Alabama.
Right.
At that point, I decided that I wanted to go somewhere a little different than everybody in high school was going. Not because I didn't like anybody in high school, but I just thought it would be good to branch out and meet some new people, and so. Because my mom had gone to Western and played basketball, there was a discount on tuition. Right. And so I ended up choosing to go to Western.
There you go. PJ, that's why, John and I were distinguished alum from Western Kentucky University, and they contact us a lot to give them money.
Usually around supper time.
Yeah, that's when they call you. And I remember that. Did you ever do a phone-a-thon when you were at Western to raise money for them?
No.
Yeah, they would. The reason I did it was I was the kid that wanted the candy bar. They would buy you a pizza if you would come and make 100 calls for fundraising. And so I would go and do 100 calls and get my free pizza, or if you made 20 calls, you got a Snickers bar. So I was always, when phone-a-thon was up for raising money for Western, man, I was like, I'd go out the door, come back around, stand in line again to do it again.
Now, was it a full large pizza?
Yeah, it was
or like a personal
topping,
pan?
No, it was a one topping large pizza from Papa John's. Yeah, I mean they gave you a certificate. And then,
I'd make 100 phone calls just for a pizza.
Yeah, I'd still do it.
Yeah.
By the time I was there, they had instituted a plasma donation center down the road. So
that's how John got his money.
I didn't have to make any phone calls.
So what did you study at Western, John?
Political science and sociology.
Okay.
So
political science. So you spent a lot of time in Grice Hall.
Right.
Yeah. So you and I have that in common. They didn't call it political science when I was there. They called it government. You had a major in government, and did they change it to political science?
Yes.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
They did that because everybody else in the country called it political science.
Right.
So
it's a Bachelor of Arts degree in
did you have
political
Dr.
science.
Carney and any of those guys? Or?
I didn't have Carney. I'm trying to think. It's been
So you took political theory and all that stuff.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah.
Wow. And the political statistics class, did you take? Oh, that was a booger.
Yeah. I don't know. I ended up taking 2 stats classes. Accidentally. I didn't have to. Then I realized after my mistake that it was a mistake to take it twice. So.
And then you said your other major was psychology?
Well, it was a minor in criminology, but I'm like 4 hours short of a sociology double major.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So at what point in college did you decide you were for certain going to go to law school, or did you know going into college that law school was on the radar?
I had already known, and that was part of the reason. They tell you that political science is the best thing for law school, and then when you find out afterwards that they don't really care if you're a political science major or not. Right. It's irrelevant. They actually prefer that you're not.
Yeah, right. I mean, people have asked me what Kendall right now, she's thinking about going to law school, and she goes, what should I major in? And I said, whatever requires you to read, because law school is about reading and comprehension and being able to do a lot of it and not get bored with it, and I was like, I wish I would have had a double major. I wish I would have had a business major, which would have prepared me for running the business of a law firm, or at least give me that foundation. And I wish I would have been an English major or literature and just read and read and read, because when I went to law school, the biggest shock for me was how much you have to read and comprehend.
Right.
Was it for you?
Well, yeah, that and analyzing and dissecting different arguments and things like that. So
political science didn't help me any for that.
No. And I kind of, up until I got to law school, I kind of was a guy that just made it. I just kind of coasted by. I did well enough in high school and college, just winging it. So
and you can't do that in law school.
No,
you cannot wing it.
No.
There's no winging it in law school. You'll get terribly embarrassed if you show up to class thinking you can. At least now, where did you go to law school?
Chase, Northern
Kentucky. All right. And so what while you were in law school, was there anything that began to interest you? Wow, I really like this, or was it all like I just want to get out of here?
Well, the criminal law classes, once I got into my second and third years, interested me. I liked my torts class, and then I thought that I wanted to do real estate type stuff, closings, that type of thing, but found out that didn't really stimulate me.
Right. Okay. Now, one thing, I've been remiss. John has a very important other group of people in his life, and we haven't plugged that into this, PJ. Okay, so we need to get to the old wife. When did you meet?
She's not old. Let's get that straight.
The young wife.
Yeah, we got to give him an opportunity to get some brownie points.
Yes. When did you meet your now wife?
We met in 2010, and that was my last semester of college
at Western. Was she a student at Western?
No, we had a mutual friend from a girl that I had met my freshman year of college that had transferred to Bellarmine, had gone to high school with my wife Mary Beth, and we decided to do a Paoli college weekend ski trip all together, and so me and another buddy met this girl at Bellarmine. Mary Beth was there, and then we all went skiing together at Paoli.
And the rest
is history.
Yeah. Okay, so was she in school at Bellarmine?
She was at University of Kentucky.
She was at UK.
Yeah, she was finishing up at UK.
And what was her study?
Health communications.
Okay. So
marketing type.
So you meet your last semester of college, and when did you get married?
2012.
So in the middle of law school?
Yes. Yep. So it was the summer before my 2L, my second year of law school.
All right. So you get married the summer before you start your second year of law school. I mean, you didn't have enough going on. You just thought to add a little to the
right. Yeah.
Right. Did you have an actual honeymoon?
Yes, we went to the Dominican Republic.
Did you?
Yeah, my first time and only
Punta
time
Cana?
out of the Punta Cana.
Yeah. Did you like that?
I did. Yeah, it's I had never been out of the country before. I had planned to go to Europe when I was in the 8th grade, but 9/11 happened.
Oh, well, that would kind of change.
Right, so we didn't get to go. And then so my wife jokes about me getting all nervous about getting into the country and then getting out.
Right.
I was all jacked up about trying to get out of there.
Yeah.
I was worried. I didn't know how all that
I
worked.
tell you, the Punta Cana airport is crazy. There's people wanting you to go with them to your destination, and you're trying to find. They say be looking for the person wearing this. Well, they all look the same, and they're all wanting you to jump in their van, their broke down van, to get to your resort. They promise you they can get you there, and you're like, no, I know there's one person here that really can, and it's like finding a needle in a haystack, isn't it?
Right. And it's like a thatch roof. They've got and then there's no security going in. Like it's just everybody's just going in.
There's these little mopeds flying around and it's crazy. And then you have people wanting to sell you expeditions, like not the vehicle, but like, hey, go on excursions, zip lining, scuba diving, and all this, and it's like. It is overstimulation.
Right. Well, and then and they set it up so that they tell you that to get back to the airport when your vacation's over, that you have to meet with somebody about these excursions the next day after you get there at like 6 or 7 a.m.
That's right. They set you up this. That is classic at these all-inclusive resorts. They say you have to have this meeting in the morning, and we will give you the information about how to get back to the airport. And so you're all scared. You're like, good God, I'm not going to make it back to the airport.
That sounds very suspect.
And so you show up to this meeting to get your travel plans of when you're going to leave, and they take you for that whole time. They're like, can we set you up with an excursion to go do this and go do that and go do this? And it ends up being like an hour and a half of telling someone no.
Right.
Did you fall into the trap? Did you end up doing
No,
an excursion?
luckily Mary Beth was like, we're not doing that.
So it's kind of like a timeshare.
Well, yeah, and sometimes they do the timeshare, but not. This is strictly a mechanism that they've learned that you don't get your return information, like information for returning to the airport and time of your shuttle and all that, if you don't go to this meeting where they try to sell you all these excursions on the island. Yeah.
So, but luckily, like I said, I had Mary Beth with me, and she's like, no, we're not doing that, and I'll get us out here. Don't worry about it. So
wow.
There you go.
All I could think about this the whole time you guys were explaining a trip to the Dominican Republic is I'm sitting there imagining myself seeing all these random people and going, which one of these vehicles is not going to take me to a human trafficking ring?
Yeah, it is in the back there. It's crazy. But, I mean, once you make it to the resorts, they're nice.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get to what's important. You graduate law school, and where did you first practice law?
Louisville, Kentucky, a small firm, Ricketts Law Offices, and it was a great experience. I mean, it was just trial by fire. I mean, they just threw me right in.
Okay, so you when you graduated law school, you decided you wanted to go to Louisville, or were you kind of open to ideas?
Well, I had been working at a prosecutor's office as an extern before I got my license, and then with a limited license. So I'd done some criminal stuff on the prosecution side while I was in law school, and immediately after. My wife was from Louisville, decided we needed to go back to Louisville, and so I started looking for jobs down there, and her cousin's married to a criminal defense attorney and knew that this John Ricketts was looking for somebody to bring in out of law school, and so we got hooked up, hit it off, and that was that.
Okay. So then at some point, and I think I've got my story right. You actually met Jeff Foreman like prior to the convention that was here, correct?
Right. Yeah. Well, of course, there were two of my law school classmates had been working in the land title company, and so I'd contacted them. I'd started looking because we decided that we'd had a child at that time, decided we were going to look for somewhere else to live other than Louisville, just because of some personal decisions we were making about education and that type of thing. And so started looking other places and got in contact with him and got in contact with James and Lauren, and then got hooked up with Jeff at the convention.
Right. And that was the convention. Wow, what year was that? 2018?
I think it'd been 17. It may have been 8. No, it would have been 18.
18,
I guess. Yeah.
Right. And so you talk to Jeff. Jeff comes to me with the idea that bring John on to kind of do a little bit of work for land title, because at the time the firm wasn't really considering expanding. It just wasn't in the business plan to bring on another person. We were trying to do things gradually, but Jeff came up with the idea that maybe John could do a little work for land title. John wanted to do some criminal work, and so we could let him do that to help supplement his income and that kind of thing. But when he got here quickly, we saw his passion was doing criminal work, and so for the first year, you may have done some land title stuff.
Right. Yeah. It was for the first year, and then we kind of, even in that first year, I think it transitioned more into the litigation type stuff.
Right. And I think I know the answer to this, but I'll let you answer it. About what percentage of your work is criminal law, and what percentage of your work is civil litigation, like doing property things?
It kind of fluctuates just depending on what's going on, but I'd say that it varies between 65 and 80% criminal, probably. Okay. Just on any given, depending on what's going on.
And so when we talk about criminal law, just so we one of the reasons we wanted to get you on the podcast was to be able to let you say, these are the kind of things you're seeing and doing. What are you seeing as a majority of your criminal law practice are the things that you're being asked to counsel people on and defend them in?
Well, I'd say the majority of things, first is DUIs. There's a crackdown on DUIs. The laws have changed. They've instituted tougher penalties, a longer look-back period. It's just one of the more common things that we see. Drug cases there's trafficking, possession cases. Depending on the county, there's a lot of sex crimes and assaults. Probably, I would say, are probably the biggest.
Okay. Now, one of the things that interests me, John, is that over the past couple of years getting to know you, is that I know that you and your wife are very active in your church, and you are you hold your faith to be extremely important to you as a person. As I do, we've talked about that,
right.
And so the question that I even get it just being a lawyer, it's how can you be a lawyer and also be strong in your faith? How can you do that? And then I'm sure compounding that even more is like, how can you defend somebody that's been accused of these heinous things and have a good conscience and feel like you're doing that and maintaining being a Christian? Right. And I know that could go a long way, maybe a whole nother topic for a podcast, but it is something you have to deal with, right?
That sounds like a question I asked, and I did not give him that question, just so you know.
Well, first off, I'm still growing in my faith personally. And so my ideas about faith have changed over time, and come to understand that, we're lifelong sinners,
right?
Okay, you try not to, but
yes,
it's inevitable, and that the real power from God is the grace and the love and unconditional compassion that He has for His children. And so, what I try to do is rectify the difference between justice and punishment on earth versus grace, and try to employ that so that the justice system, in my opinion, doesn't necessarily do the greatest job of imposing grace as opposed to punishment, because they serve two different purposes.
Sure.
And so when you look at eternally, that God is foregoing the justice and punishment you deserve, and instead is imposing grace out of His love.
Mm-hmm.
And so both have a place. It's just how they're going to be utilized.
Right. I know that one of the things I've always said is, well, what greater person is there than a Christian to be dealing with some of the people that you may be the last hope for some of those people to see someone that is strong in their faith, you know, and yet giving them a defense. And one of the other things that is interesting to me is that basically the United States justice system and our government is set up very much like a lot of the laws and the frameworks that are given in the Old Testament.
Right.
And so we have a framework that's built on biblically, you know, and we know, if you read the Bible, that God is a God of justice and mercy. And if we follow that pattern, there is a place for counselors of the law for the accused, you know.
Right.
And so it just has always interested me. And I know it's a tight line sometimes because morally you sit there and look and you have somebody that's charged and you wonder, you know, but still they're entitled to a defense in our justice system.
Well, and I know PJ and I have had this conversation many a time.
We have.
But you know, it's my job to make sure that the government plays by the rules that have been set for them, because otherwise, I mean, you know, they can't break rules in order to get a conviction, because that's not just either. You know, they need to play by the rules, because it's not just to get a conviction of somebody that's innocent. All you've done is fluffed a statistic instead of actually bringing closure and justice, and because those things have harm to the victim as well, because if you find out later that the person that was convicted is innocent, now we've opened up that wound back for the victim to realize that, you know, they didn't get the right person. They don't have closure anymore, and the person that wronged them was out there.
Let's bring this kind of full circle. Your practice here at Foreman Watson Holtree, 60 to 70, up to 80 sometimes % criminal law practice. And you are doing that sort of on a circuit, right? You're not just in Owensboro.
Right.
What are some of the areas of this region that you are finding yourself being in frequently?
McLean, Muhlenberg County, Butler County, Ohio County. I've been up to Hancock County on occasion, Henderson a couple times. But I mean, I've got cases as far as Cumberland County, Frankfort, Franklin County, and then have been as far as Paducah.
Okay.
So
when we say that he's on the road, he is literally on the road, and I guess it's kind of got. At first, it was mind-boggling for you. How do I manage my time and be between all these offices and things like that? But now I think, as I understand, it's kind of refreshing for you to have kind of an oasis on the road, you know, because we now have offices in Bowling Green. We had the one in Ohio County. We have the one in Calhoun. We have the one here, so that kind of wherever you're at, you can always stop in, you know?
Right. Well, yeah, and that's nice to be able to have different places to go into. I like to get out of the office to do thinking and to get my mind around what I'm working on. Sometimes I think that's refreshing and gives me perspective on what I'm working on, and go to the crime scenes. I mean, PJ's been with me a couple times to gather evidence or talk to people, and so I think that's important. But yeah, I mean, I just go where I'm needed. So,
well, you've done a great job. The way that, from where you began with us and now where you're at now, just kind of, I think about 6 months ago, I'd sent you a text or an email, and I kind of referred to you as Mr. Steady, and there are all kinds of people that make a team work. And I there was a couple of basketball players in the history of University of Louisville who, I advised that were just steady. They never had the highest statistics, but they were never the guys that didn't show up. This is every game you could count on them for 8 to 10 rebounds, 10 to 15 points, and they did it consistently. And those were the people that they built that team around. And they were in the Final Four twice with those two guys. And you have gotten your practice to that point where you're starting to get a reputation, you're starting to get known, the cases are starting to come in, and because of our marketing, we're seeing some more, and you kind of found that balance. So you've done a wonderful job, and I didn't know you were always back there talking to PJ. I may need to cut that the extracurricular conversations.
Well,
down.
It's the conversations a lot of the time stem from my own emotional trauma from the break-in my house. I have a very strong opinion about the people that did that to my family, and he's tried to set me straight a few times.
Yeah,
so.
Well, it's sort of what I tell you all the time, PJ, that in our job, we take a person that's been involved in a collision, and the insurance company wants to treat them like a claim number. They don't want to treat them like they have flesh and blood and life and passions and kids, and they don't want to treat them that way, because if they do and it's humanized, it's a lot harder for them to tell those people they're not entitled to money. And it's the same thing with criminal law. The people that have been charged are real people, and the system likes to just call them the next case number, you know.
Yeah.
And having someone that sees the humanity in that and understand that, yeah, you may have done wrong, but let's make sure they prove exactly what you did wrong, and that's the only thing you pay your sentence for. That's the process for a good defense lawyer in criminal law.
Right. There's different versions of wins in each specific case, and one thing I struggle with is that a client comes in and says, well, so and so had this issue and this is what they got. Well, not exactly, because your criminal history may be different, your case facts may be different. You know, there's all kinds of different variables that go into each unique case, and that's what I treat each case as a unique case. And I think that's, you know, the way to discuss it with the prosecutors is this case is not exactly like any of your other cases.
Right.
You know, they want to say, well, you know, we've seen this before, you know, and it's my job to get to the bottom of why the case is unique and convey that to either the prosecutor in negotiation or to the jury if we end up going to trial.
Yeah. All right. Well, John, thank you for making time to be on the podcast. I promised you several times, hey, we're going to get you on, but today was a perfect opportunity, and but we appreciate you and all you're doing for people in this region, and look forward to watching your practice continue to grow. PJ, anything else you want before we close it down?
No, I mean, I'm a little disappointed that we didn't get a chance to talk about the most compelling part of his practice, which is timber theft.
Oh,
but we can talk about that on the next podcast.
That's that other 20 to 30% of his practice that we didn't talk about. But
when we shot that, when I shot all those promos with each of the attorneys, and he did one about timber theft, and I'll be honest, I didn't realize that was even a thing.
Right.
And I laughed so hard when he talked about that, because I was just like imagining someone sneaking onto somebody's property and just like taking their firewood or something. So he had to explain to me exactly what timber theft, and that it is a big issue.
Well, yeah. And little secret, I didn't know what it was until I got down here. I mean, we don't have those types of cases in Louisville either. So.
Right. Okay.
Somebody took
stealing people's timber.
Somebody took my dogwood tree out of my front yard. That's about what you're gonna get. All right. Well, again, thanks, John, and PJ. We'll wrap up another episode here. It's been Law Light. It's been, as always, brought to you by Foreman, Watson, Holtree, FWHlegal.com. Check out our website. Check us out on Facebook and all other platforms of social media. We appreciate you, and until next time.
Thanks, Travis. Go Cats.
No. He can't end on that.
This case should never have come to trial.
I don't think it's fair to call my clients frauds. Because one time I turned into a dog and they helped me. Thank you.
Your Honor, we would like to withdraw our plea of not guilty and enter a plea of guilty.
This trial is a travesty. It's a travesty of a mockery, of a sham, of a mockery, of a travesty, of two mockeries of a sham.
If we are to have faith and justice, we need only to believe in ourselves.
And the truth shall set you free.
How do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Oh, guilty, but with a real good excuse.
I think the truth will come forth. You can't handle the truth.